relationship. She broke up with you.
Yes.
What appliances did she take when she left the house?
She took the washer, the dryer, and the fridge. I pay for everything.
So what gives you the right to take them?
She kindly offered me for my birthday.
You're a grown-up lady. You're not a baby.
This is...
Come to order.
Be seated, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 1132, Cruz versus Cardona.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Cruz, you and Miss Cardona had been friends years ago.
20 years.
And according to what I read, sort of lost touch. Miss Cardona married,
Yes.
but divorced her husband. In what year?
It's been about 4 years almost.
And how long were you married?
About 13 years.
You have kids?
Yes, I do.
How many?
I have twins. My daughter is here. My son is not here today.
After Miss Cardona's divorce, the two of you sort of reconnected. And you reconnected in a romantic way, and you began dating. Shortly thereafter, you purchased another house. You had lived, according to what I remember, at least, you lived in Porter Ranch.
Yes, ma'am.
But you bought another house. Where?
In Paris, California.
Paris?
Paris, P-E-R-R-I-S, Paris.
And that's about how far from Porter Ranch?
It's about an hour and a half.
And Miss Cardona and her family moved into that house. Is that correct?
Yes.
In what year did you move into that house with your children?
2019, about June, middle June.
And you and Miss Cardona, Miss Cruz, were a couple from when to when?
Well, we started dating in December 15, 2018, until March 21st, 2021.
Then you separated, and you, in fact, told Miss Cardona that you wanted her to move from the house. She eventually did, several months later.
It was September 26th, I believe, when she moved out.
When did you move out of the house, Miss Cardona?
I left last month.
So in September?
Yes.
Okay, so your claim is for several things. You claim she still owes money on a car that you purchased that she was paying off. You claim that when she left the house, she took appliances from the house. And you say that she owes for household expenses, which she had been paying, but she stopped paying as of March or April
April 26th.
until she moved out. Miss Cardona says, with regard to the appliances, they were a gift. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying to me?
Yes.
No, they were not a gift.
With regard to the car, she says she finished paying it off.
Yes.
And with regard to the household expenses, you've been paying the mortgage, according to you. Is that right?
Yes,
That's either a yes or a no. And if
Yes.
not, how much was that?
1,400.
Okay. And according to you, you stopped paying the mortgage because you wanted to save money to move.
That is correct.
Well, you can't do that, because if that was your agreement that you pay the mortgage, you have to pay the mortgage. So that's easy. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how many months did you live there without paying the mortgage?
4 months.
Okay. Now let's deal with the appliances. What appliances did she take when she left the house?
She took the washer, the dryer, and the fridge, Your Honor.
Who paid for them?
I pay for everything, yes. I have the receipts from Costco. I bought them
Is
at
it
Costco.
correct, Ms. Cardona, without my looking at her receipts, that the plaintiff paid for the washer, dryer, and the refrigerator?
Half of it, yes.
She only paid half.
Yes. I paid her already half.
How much did you give her towards your half?
I gave her 1,200.
For what?
For the washer, dryer, and fridge that she kindly offered me for my birthday.
Oh, listen, I don't want to hear kindly
Okay.
offered you for your birthday.
Yes.
I don't want to hear kindly offered you for your
Okay.
birthday. So what gives you the right to take them?
Again, it was a gift that
No,
she gave
it wasn't
me.
a gift. It wasn't a gift if you paid for half of it. If you split the cost of the washer and dryer, then, if I believe that,
Yes.
then you have to pay her for half of the cost of the washer and dryer. You don't just take them with you.
After we broke up, I was going to pay her the rest, but she kicked me out of the house with my kids, and I didn't have money to give her the half, but I agree with her that I was going to give her payments.
That's a lot of doublespeak. You want to doublespeak? I suggest, how old are you?
18.
It's embarrassing to doublespeak in front of your daughter, because the doublespeak that you're giving me was the other half she kindly gave me as a gift, and then you just told me I didn't have the money to give her the other half. I was going to make it for her in payments. So that's two different things that you just told me. Am I crazy? Do you understand? One defense. Either it was a gift,
It
which
was
I'm going
a
to ask
gift.
for, or, well, then what was this? I was going to
It
pay her
was a
half,
gift,
but I didn't have
once
the money.
we broke up, she charge me for those appliances once we broke up.
She broke up with you. It was her house. Sure, it was a good deal for you and your children because you're paying for the mortgage. That's
Yes.
it. But what did you expect her to do? You're no longer in a relationship. What did you think she should do? Give you the house?
I
Just
never
a
asked.
second.
I never asked for that.
What did so she told you she wanted you out of the house.
Yes.
You didn't leave the house.
I paid the mortgage up to May.
May.
Was the last
Okay.
time that I paid.
So you stayed,
May.
but you broke up in March. So you had March, April, and May. You had 3 months to find another place. She didn't get a marshal to come to throw you out with your children. And then you stopped paying the mortgage because you wanted to save up money.
I didn't have money to leave at that moment.
Okay.
Judge Judy, I didn't have money.
When you say I didn't have money, if you said to me and said to her, I want to be able to save some money before I move out because we've been here for several years.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you half of the mortgage, but not to do anything because you wanted to save money. Who was supposed to pay the mortgage while you and your girls were living? She's not related to you. You still have the appliances?
Yes.
You wash your clothes in the washing machine, you dry them in the dryer, you put food in the refrigerator. You have to pay for that. You're a grown-up lady. You have two 18-year-olds. You're not a baby.
And later today,
She could do whatever she wants with her property. You're on a month-to-month tenancy. If you don't like that she's going to build additional units that she has a right to build in the back of her house, move!
owes for the cost of appliances and the balance on a car.
Who was supposed to pay the mortgage when you didn't? I don't know whether she has a mortgage on her other house. Do your daughters work?
No,
Do you work?
I don't.
Who was supposed to pay the mortgage? She works. So you have to pay her. The months you didn't pay, it's $5,600. Is that correct? $5,600. You have to pay for the mortgage. Now let's get to the car. No, appliances. Did she agree to pay for half the appliances?
Yes, Your Honor. I even
Yeah, I
have
see
a text in here of May 18th, and she's saying, okay, fair enough, Denise, I'll pay as
Hold
I
on.
always do. But she never did.
What was the $3,845.54 for?
The $3,845 was the money that she owed for the car and the appliances.
She says, okay, fair enough, Denise. I will pay you as I always do. Have a blessed day. That was May 19th.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so as of May, you agreed that you owed her $3,845.54 because you say, okay, fair enough,
Yes.
Denise, I will pay you as always.
Yes, basically,
Not basically, basically is a filler word. Any money that you sent to her after May 18th, I will look at. That's either an I sent nothing or here it is.
no,
Don't-
I have the proofs here that I don't own her anything besides the other half of the appliances.
just pay careful attention to me.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to see any payments that you made to her after May 19th.
No, it
just
was
say
before.
none.
It's before, none.
Then you owed her $3,845. Now, after May, you did not pay the mortgage that you were supposed to pay, and you live there. That's an additional $5,600. Do you understand?
Yes.
That's $94.45. Now, you know, people break up all the time. Half the marriages in this country fail. Put down your papers. She's not responsible for you. She's not responsible for your children. I understand that you work and that you have children as a responsibility, but you are not her responsibility. So it's a debt. Do you still have the car? Just put your hand down. Do you still have the car?
Yes.
You drive around the car?
Yes.
Okay. And you still have the appliances?
Yes.
You wash your clothes in the washing machine, you dry them in the dryer, you put food in the refrigerator, you took them, even though, according to you, you only paid for half of them. You have to pay for that. You're a grown-up lady. You have two 18-year-olds. You're not a baby. $94.45, judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you very much.
Court is adjourned.
I broke up with her,
She paid until she got somebody else,
started dating someone, and she couldn't handle that.
and then she stopped paying.
She cannot move on.
Everything went sour after that.
Sarah, they appear to be two nice women, and you had to be somewhat sympathetic with the defendant. She was trying to do her, her best. She's got two kids. They had an agreement, even though it wasn't a written agreement. Fortunately, sometimes texts work.
Yeah.
Memorializing what your agreement is, even if you don't do it by a formal contract, the text that you wrote to her and said, this is what you owe. And she said, I agree. I will pay you as always. Have a blessed day, was enough of a contract to acknowledge that there was a debt. If you can somehow memorialize an agreement, and not just a one-way agreement, not this is what you owe me, but there needs to be a response, an acknowledgement of that debt, that will usually work.
Yeah, you're going to be held to that.
Case number 1112, Fawcett, Hester versus Balwani. All parties, please step forward.
Lauren Fawcett and Patrick Hester are suing their former landlord, Sahel Bawani, for breaching their lease, a security deposit, property damage, and a utility bill.
You're Patrick Hessler.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is your wife. And you were tenants of a duplex that is owned by the defendant from 2016 until recently.
Late 2015 until May 2021.
And I assume that you were on, after your initial lease, on a month-to-month lease?
Correct, Your Honor.
You're suing the defendant for a whole bunch of things. For money owed for damages arising from a breached lease, number one. Number two, the return of security deposit. You may have an issue with regard to that. Property damage, and the rest is a utility bill, which I'm not dealing with at all. Okay, so this is what I gather from your complaint. You had a month-to-month lease. You were good tenants. You initially had a 12-month lease that turned into a month-to-month tenancy. So far accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
So that means that you could move out, given 30 days notice, which would be nice, and she could tell you to get out on notice. Same 30 days. That sound reasonable to you?
Yes.
Sure. And this place had a yard. Somebody have a picture of it to show me?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'd love to take a look at it. Okay, so this is the basic story. The county or whatever governmental authority gave the defendants the right to build additional units in the back of the property, which she wanted to do. She wanted to exercise her right to do that, which is her right. And she could have said to you, it's been nice knowing you. I'm adding units to my property, so you can either stay or go during the construction. It's going to take a year, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you don't own the property.
Correct.
You're renters, not even with a lease. So part of the thing that had to go was a tree in the backyard. And you didn't want the tree to go because that's where you get shade and your kids like to play. I don't know what it was. So she sent people over to remove the tree to start the process of constructing on her property something that would add additional value to her property. So far, am I missing anything?
No.
No. So raise your hand. Who was the one who interfered with them taking down the tree at first? Either of you? That would be you. And then they finally did take down the tree. Somebody called the police. I don't know who that was. Raise your hand if you called the police. That would be you. Police said you can't stop them from taking down the tree. It's their property. Did you find anything unusual about that?
It was our understanding with the initial lease that we signed and that we understood that we were...
I don't care what you understood. I don't care what was in your mind. She could do whatever she wants with her property. You're on a month-to-month tenancy. If you don't like that she's going to build additional units that she has a right to build in the back of her house, move! There are tenants' rights and there are landlords' rights. And she doesn't have to leave property that she has fallow if she can generate income from her property because you like a shade tree. Well, that's why they kept your security deposit, because you didn't pay rent. You lived there. Yourself, your wife, your kids, you lived there and you didn't pay rent. What were they supposed to do? How were they supposed to get their rent? I don't know.
Breaking their lease, property damage, and the return of their security deposit.
Now, your first cause of action is for a breached lease. First of all, you had no lease. You had a month-to-month tenancy. So what lease did she breach?
The way that we read the law, when we had talked to a few people that gave us some guidance on the matter, said that the lease would be the initial lease that we signed.
So you think every month you had another year?
No, just the terms of that lease.
Okay. Who did you speak to initially and when about the addition that the defendant wanted to put on the property?
Spoke with her husband.
Okay, you spoke with her husband. That would be you.
That would be me.
In what month?
I can't recall, Your Honor. January.
What month?
January 25th to be exact.
January 25th, 2021?
Yes.
When did you move out?
May 31st.
Okay, so 4 months later.
Correct, Your Honor.
So you were advised by your landlord that they were going to build these additional units 4 months before you moved. So now you had 30 days notice of that, right?
Correct.
When you spoke to her husband, did he in fact say to you, for any inconvenience that you had during construction, if you wanted to stay during the construction, he would reduce your rent? Did he say that to you?
Yes, and I
Yeah,
asked him.
just a second. The answer is, he told you he was building these things, and he said, you have a choice. You can either stay, and I'll reduce your rent by $400, or you can go. Which means February 25th, 2021. What did you tell him when he said, I will reduce your rent if you choose to stay?
I said I need to talk to my wife.
Did you talk to your wife?
No, I didn't get to talk to my wife because she was having medical issues going on.
Just a second. Baloney. Did he also say to you, you are an electrician by trade?
Yes.
Did he also say to you, not only will I reduce your rent, but I'll let you do the electrical work for the new units?
Yes, he offered.
Yes. The answer is yes. He said, I'll reduce your rent for the inconvenience. I'll also, for the inconvenience, because you've been good tenants, I will offer you the contract to do the electrical work on the new units that I'm going to put in. He didn't have to do any of that for you. He could have tacked a 30-day notice on your door and said, vacate in 30 days. Be gone by March 1st. They chose not to do that. Now, return of security deposit. How much security deposit did you give them?
$2,000.
And that was in 2016?
15.
2015. Did you return their security deposit?
Yes, Your Honor.
How much?
We returned $250
Why?
because they didn't pay us the last month's rent.
Oh. What was their rent?
So the reduced rent, I believe we'd already, since we'd taken that tree down, we decided we would go ahead and reduce the rent as promised that they had agreed to.
So what was their reduced rent?
$1,700.
And it had been $2,100.
Yes.
And according to you, you moved out May 31st.
Correct.
Did you pay May's rent?
No, Your Honor.
Well, that's why they kept your security deposit, because you didn't pay rent. You lived there, yourself, your wife, your kids. You lived there and you didn't pay rent. What were they supposed to do? How were they supposed to get their rent? I don't know. You do have a claim here for property damage. And the property damage that you allege was a broken trampoline?
Yes, Your Honor.
So let me see the trampoline that you are alleging that they broke. When you say they broke it, do you know who broke it?
The tree contractors.
Okay. And the tree contractor broke this
Correct.
and this,
Yes.
made holes in it.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you notify them that this was broken by the tree contractor?
Yes, Your
Did you
Honor.
notify them?
Yes.
When did you notify them?
I believe it was the same day that the trees.
Did they
were cut down.
notify you that the tree contractor had damaged their trampoline?
Yes, Your Honor, but we notified them prior to the tree contractor coming to remove anything that might get into the way of the tree contractor.
They did
Explain that to me.
I'm sorry, and I believe they
not.
didn't.
They did not notify us.
They didn't notify us that it was damaged, but prior to that, we did notify them to remove any property that might be theirs that might be in the way.
Do you have any proof by way of communication, text message, letter, that you notified them to remove this trampoline because the tree was going to come down? Do you have any proof of that? The answer is either yes or no.
Yes, but it's through text message.
That's okay.
Okay.
I do text messages.
Also, Your Honor, prior to even asking them to remove the trampoline, they're not supposed to have a trampoline per insurance reasons because it's a dangerous item on our premise and it could hurt our tenant. So we had asked them to remove the trampoline to begin with.
Is it correct that they asked you to remove the trampoline? They have.
It is
Just a
Yes,
second.
sorry.
When did they ask you to remove the trampoline?
Before the tree was cut down, Your Honor.
Okay, your case is dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much. You don't have to look for anything else. Goodbye.
Court is adjourned.
Oh, I feel relieved. This was so stressful for us.
She made it, that's it, and move forward.
Every single time it was like more money, more money, more money.
We tried, and that's it.
We had to place all of that on hold because of this situation, but we're going to move forward.
You know, Sarah, most landlords are in business. They own property. They want to keep it in good shape. These were perfectly lovely people, perfectly reasonable people. They gave the people who had lived there for 5 years alternatives.
More than reasonable. Offered them the contract to make money in his own business.
Right.
As an electrician.
Or they could move in 30 days.
Yeah.
So they stayed. They didn't pay their last month's rent. And then they sued them for thousands and thousands of dollars.
For something that they were way within their rights to do as property owners.
And it's probably because, she says, we asked a few people.
Yeah.
Well, that's ridiculous. Landlords have rights. Tenants have rights. But courts have to be in the middle. And I don't know when that happened, that the word landlord became synonymous with evil or used in the pejorative. And it's really too bad. You can't pigeonhole people. Yeah. That's what these plaintiffs tried to do. They didn't. Apartment. That's what you do as a grown-up. You didn't do that.
That's not true.
He held the apartment for you for 6 weeks for no money. You're a hustler, madam.
I am not a hustler.
We are done.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, yeah,
no.
you are.
No, I won't go. No.
This is Judy Justice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ah, Miss Gangley, interesting story. You were moving from Arizona to California?
Correct.
And you had a friend. I assume this was the mutual friend?
I have a very good friend. A friend of his is also...
Who was this?
This is my sister.
You knew the defendant through a mutual friend.
Exactly.
You were moving from Arizona to California with a son who was how old?
15.
And according to you, you wanted him to go to a good school, and you found out through this mutual friend that the defendant had an apartment in California, in an area where you wanted to live. You came to look at the apartment, and you came to look at the apartment, I believe, in June of this year.
Correct.
And you liked the apartment.
Yes.
And you settled on a rent.
Yes.
You negotiated the price of the rent. He wanted more. You wanted to pay less. How much was he asking originally?
He was asking, I believe, $37.50.
Is that what you were asking, sir?
No, I was asking 45, and I said because she's a
Sir,
friend.
no, just a second. You were asking 45.
I was asking 45 for the apartment, but because through a friend, I said I'll give it to you for 4.
Had you rented the apartment before?
Yes.
To whom?
To a lady who moved to Utah.
How long had she been in the apartment?
3 years.
When did she leave?
2 months before this incident.
So she left relatively soon, maybe in May.
Yeah.
And how much was she paying in rent?
38.
And you agreed with the defendant. You wanted 4. She says 37. I'm not sure I believe her. You finally fixed on 35, correct?
Yes.
Which is, according to you, $300 less than you were getting from your previous tenant.
Correct.
Who had been there. Well, that was nice of you, $3,500. And you were supposed to provide him with security deposit. How much?
$3,500. So the total due would have been $6,000.
I'm going to do this my way.
Okay, sorry.
You were supposed to provide him with security deposit when you saw the apartment in July, because now you are, if you want to take the apartment, you want him to stop showing the apartment.
This is before I got to LA, yes.
You went to see the apartment for the first time in June.
Yes.
And in June, you said you'd take it.
Correct.
So you clearly wanted him to stop showing the apartment to other people.
We were done, yes.
Great. And how much money did you give him in June then?
And I have the text messages.
That's a number. Just a second.
Well,
that's a number.
In June, I gave him nothing.
So in June, you gave him nothing. June, what did you come looking at the apartment? Because this is what it all comes down. This is what the case all comes down to, so that people aren't wondering out there what this case is all about.
On the evening of June 1st.
I'm speaking.
I thought you asked me the date.
No.
I'm sorry.
This is what the case is all about. In case anybody is wondering what the case is all about, Ms. Gangley is suing the defendant for $10,000 because he reneged on an agreement to rent her an apartment. That's what you're suing him for your moving costs and everything else. That's what you're suing him for.
Correct.
You saw the apartment June 1st. You gave him no money.
Correct.
You signed no lease.
Correct.
You were moving into the apartment on what date?
July 15th.
Between June 1st and July 15th, how much money had you sent him?
$1,000.
On what date?
The date that I sent the money was 2 days after he requested it, and it was July 12th was one.
Well, usually when you go and see an apartment, Miss Gangley, and you're not a child.
Correct.
I haven't rented an apartment in a long time, but I have a pretty fixed memory. You go and look at an apartment, you say, I like it. You go with the person who was renting the apartment, you sign a lease, you give them a check, you give them the date when the lease is going to be signed, and then you have a signed lease, and he has his security deposit, first month's rent. Sometimes they require last month's rent. In this case, what were you supposed to give him? A month's rent and how much security?
May I just tell from the beginning?
No.
Okay. Well, we didn't speak on...
Just a second. You came and looked at the apartment, and because he was a friend of a friend...
We talked only about the rent.
Of a friend of a friend of a friend, you gave him no money, and you asked him, you expected him to take his apartment out of circulation until you got there on July 15th, even though he gave you a rent that was less than what he was getting from his previous tenant. That's a pretty good deal. I asked you for a number. How much money were you supposed to give him for the apartment? How much security?
He requested 0 security deposit when I met him. He told me in July that a $3,000 security deposit.
$3,000 and your month's rent.
Correct.
Which was $3,500.
Correct.
So $6,500 altogether, and you had already given him $1,000.
Correct.
So you owed him $5,500 that he agreed, nice guy, so far, really nice guy, gave you a cheaper rent than what was the going rate, that you understood because you moved into Beverly Hills. He was giving you less rent than what he was getting from his former tenant. He held the apartment for you for 6 weeks for no money, $1,000, no money. By the way,
he wasn't ready
just a second. He gave you the $1,000 back, by the way.
Yes.
Did you cash that check?
Yes, I did.
Then you're one and done. When you went to Wells Fargo and got the check for $5,000, you went there knowing that you owed him $5,500.
Correct.
Miss Gangley, you're a hustler.
Hotel costs after refusing to rent his apartment after she paid him a deposit.
Now, I'm not finished yet. Then, according to you, you got there with your son from Arizona with a U-Haul and a mover, and you had with you a cashier's check for $5,000. Now, when did you get that cashier's check for $5,000?
July 14th.
Where did you get the cashier's check for $5,000?
Wells Fargo in Arizona.
Is that where you have your bank account?
Yes, it is.
And when you went to Wells Fargo and got the check for $5,000, you went there knowing that you owed him $5,500.
Correct.
Your excuse for that is that you were going to pay him the rest by some Zelle account.
Which is how he had requested it.
No. Show me how he requested, on July 14th, show me how he requested payment by a Zelle account. I want you, that's a simple...
He didn't request it on July 14th.
Simple.
He didn't request it then.
Miss Gangley, listen, you're a hustler.
No, ma'am,
You're a
I'm not.
hustler. You're a hustler.
No.
What you could have done very easily was the day before you were there, you got there on July 14th, when you went to Wells Fargo and got a cashier's check, you get a cashier's check for $5,500. That is as good as cash. Like that. Instead, you talked him down with the rent, little bit.
May
You
I show
owed him,
you the text?
You owed him, yeah, maybe I'm wrong. You owed him, it's his apartment. He wants to rent it. He is in a position of wanting to rent his commodity. He had somebody who was ready, willing, and able, he thought, to rent that commodity. It's not that he had somebody else in the wings to rent your apartment. He was renting his apartment to you. You were, in my view, trying to get away with the $500 then, at that moment.
Why would I drive a U-Haul and pay all that money there to try to save $500? I would love to show you.
I would love to see, Kevin, I would love to see that on or about July 14th, he said to you, give me a cashier's check for $5,000 and pay the rest by Zelle, by some other commodity. It doesn't make sense.
This is the date.
What's the date?
That he requested the deposit.
No. What's the date when he told you?
July 6th is when he requested the deposit.
Just
by Zelle.
Just a second. July 6th, he requested the deposit by Zelle. Did you send it?
Zelle only allows
No, don't tell.
I sent the max possible on a day. Zelle only allows you to spend $500.
Who gives a rat's behind what they said to you? Just like you went into Wells Fargo on the 14th of July, just like you went into Wells Fargo on the 14th of July, on July 6th, when he sends you, please send me the deposit, you go into Wells Fargo, you get a money order, a bank check, you put it in a FedEx, and you send it to him. You saw the apartment June 1st. July 6th, he said, all right, time to get off the dime. I'm holding the apartment. It's now a month. Please send me the deposit. So you say, well, I'll give him $1,000. I'll give him $500. That's what he was asking for. But then July 14th, when you went there, you were still $500. I'm not interested in looking at anything except that he said to you, when you got there July 15th, give me a cashier's check and a Zelle payment for $500. That's what you decided to do.
I sent him a text, and he responded with an emoji of thumbs up. He responded to the text saying, yes,
you're a
that's fine.
hustler, madam.
I'm not a hustler.
And you are not getting $10,000 from this man.
And you won't look at the evidence?
I'm absolutely going to look at the evidence. I'm telling you that you're a hustler.
Okay, well, here's the evidence.
I'm telling you you're a hustler.
Well,
because
you're wrong, sir.
I'm telling you,
sorry.
Kevin, you can get it. I'm telling you you're a hustler.
Please show her that.
Because on July 14th, when you went to Wells Fargo, I, as a normal person, knowing that he wanted a deposit on July 6th, I said, you know what? I'm going all the way there. I'm packing up my son. I'm packing up my U-Haul. Wells Fargo is where I do my banking. They also have Wells Fargo here, so you didn't take out your last dollar. I'm going to get a bank check so he knows he has the money, because now he's been waiting for it for 6 weeks, and I'm going to give him a bank check for $5,500, because that's what I owe him. You didn't do that. You gave him $5,000. And I have to say to myself, why would you do that? Why would you do that? It's like saying, I have $5,000 in cash, and I'm going to give you $5,000 in cash, and I'm going to give you $500 in a note that I'm not getting right then and there, but I'm going to move my things into the apartment, and then I'm there. And then when I have the other $500, I'm going to give you the other $500. And in addition, when he said, listen, if this is the way I'm going to do business with you, you gave me $5,000 in a cashier's check, it's $500 short. I don't want to start with a tenant like this right away.
No, that's why we agreed to it ahead of time.
Here's your $1,000 back that you gave me. You took the check and you cashed it. And that was finished. He said, I don't want you as a tenant. You have a signed lease by both of you?
I have a signed, no.
No, so you have no lease. So, you see, if you're in Arizona and you want to send him his deposit that he wants over, and people do that all the time. They buy property in the mail, they buy property over email, they have DocuSign. You can do all that between June 1st and July 15th. You chose not to do that. You're not entitled to any money.
That's not true.
He's not responsible for your having to find another apartment which cost you more money. You're a grown woman, and if you saw an apartment that was a bargain, you hop on it.
She paid a deposit. Ellie says he changed his mind and refunded her deposit.
Now, on what date did he send you the lease?
He sent me...
Just a second. I'm going to go to you. On what date did you send her the lease?
July 10th.
You sent her the lease on July 10th?
10th.
Did you send it by email?
By email, and I told her to respond with sign the lease and send it back. At least I acknowledged she got the lease. I didn't hear from her.
You have all the text there.
Can I see the email that you sent her with the lease? Do you have it with you?
I have it on my phone. Can I pull it off on my phone?
Yes. So when you got the lease, you changed it.
I made an edit, as I said in the text to him there.
So you changed it
Yes.
and initialed it?
Yes. And he didn't send it on July 10th.
When did he send it?
I gave him my email on July 13th.
Sorry, apologize to July 13th. Yes. Here is the email, here is the text, and I'll open it for you.
In the evening, the day before we were loading to move.
And I wrote, please acknowledge receiving it. Never heard from her.
We spoke on the phone, sir.
You're not entitled to any money.
That's not true.
Well, I'm telling you that you're not entitled to any money.
But you haven't heard my story or seen the evidence.
What I
have not.
What I'm telling you, madam, is the following. You have no lease to his apartment.
We had a verbal contract.
No, you had no lease to his apartment, and you accepted in satisfaction of having no lease $1,000, which is what you gave him, and you cashed it. And he's not responsible for your having to find another apartment which cost you more money. You had a responsibility. You're a grown woman. And if you saw an apartment that was a bargain, you hop on it. Say, I want my lease. I want to sign it. I want to give you the money that right now for it, so I know it's mine and I know it's held. That's what you do as a grown-up. You didn't do that. You had the perfect opportunity to get a cashier's check for $5,500 the day before you went there. And you didn't. And you modified the lease before he signed it. So you had no lease. You had no written lease when there was supposed to be a written lease. This wasn't a verbal month-to-month tenancy. This was not a verbal month-to-month tenancy.
No, it was not.
Right.
It was a 12-month lease.
That's a lease for a year or more has to be in writing. And I'm telling you, you did not have a written lease with him, and you failed to fulfill the terms of the lease by not bringing a sufficient amount of money with you. Your case is dismissed.
No, ma'am.
We are done.
No.
Court is adjourned.
We are humor me
done.
to hear the story, please.
We are done.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, yeah,
No.
you are.
Sir,
Well, then there's a breach of
phone.
contract,
Yeah, my
right?
phone.
Because you told me you were going to hear the case.
I heard my
You
case.
did not hear.
Ma'am.
No, I
This
won't
way.
go. No,
The case is over.
I'm not going.
The case is over.
Actually, I never got to speak. I'm not going. Well, I was very disappointed that I didn't get to explain the sequence of events.
I think she made the right decision. Judge Judy knows what she's saying.
So I'm extremely disappointed with her decision there.
When people born, they're a gift to the world. She was the opposite.
We started communicating again in July. I reached out to him.
She tried to get in with no money and Jen not to pay the rent, I was assuming.
The deposit was not requested until the amount was never mentioned until the 10th of July.
The straw that broke the camel's back, the $500, she did a mistake.
I don't think he changed his mind. We hadn't talked about it.
No, she say, here is $5,000 and I'll give you later another $500. And I said, I'm not accepting later $500.
We have a chain of communications. He knew I was coming.
She is a hustler.
So I'm just curious, would you have felt any different about the plaintiff being a hustler if she had not cashed that $1,000 check that he had refunded her for what she had paid towards her deposit?
I would still have thought that she was a hustler, but accepting the check back from him, I mean, if the check was given to secure, her argument, it was given to secure the apartment, even though it wasn't the full amount that was necessary that he asked for the beginning of July, and she ignored him. But since she took the check and cashed the check, that says to me, here's His obligation to her is finished. The fact that she had to go and find another apartment could have been very easily rectified. This is a man, he's a landlord. He has a commodity from which he makes money, which probably costs him maintenance and taxes that he has to pay for every month that the apartment lays fallow. He agreed, because of a friendship with a mutual friend, to rent this woman an apartment for less than its going rate.
Yeah.
And he held it for a month.
For no money.
Really, for no money. She got the lease. She made an alteration on the lease. She never sent it back. She never acknowledged that she had it. The day before she left Arizona, she went to the bank knowing that she owes him $5,500. And she took out a check for $5,000.
Weird.
And paid for a check for $5,000. You know, I've been in this business and heard these landlord and tenant things long enough to know once she moved her things into that apartment, that $500 security deposit,
gone.
He was never going to see. He might have hounded her for it for a couple of months, and then he would have said, all right, forget about it. And she knew that. She knew that. That's what makes her a hustler. That check for $5,000, that cashier's check, instead of $5,500, says to me, hustler.
There.
And the icing on the cake is, he said, listen, I don't want you as a tenant in a place that I really want to rent. And you're here. And all your stuff is here. So it's very easy for me to let you move in. But I know, I'm a smart man. If I take this $5,000, I'm going to have trouble with you ongoing. Complaints, rent, more complaints. What do I need this for? Here's your $1,000. I take it, I cash it, go find a motel, stay in it until you find an apartment. You're probably not going to find an apartment in Beverly Hills for $3,500. That's a 2-bedroom apartment, which is what he had. So when you do the wrong thing, courts aren't going to stand up for you. She did the wrong thing. He did the right thing, I think. Yeah. That he did the right thing. He bent over backwards to accommodate this lady because of a friendship with a mutual friend. And she was trying to get a little bit extra. Well, it came back and it bit her in the behind. And I was more than happy to be